Hey, what's up? I'm just popping in with another video, and I think I want to rename the channel with this one to "Your Guess is as Good as Mine, but Here Goes Mine." And so I'm not offering anything with any more or less authority or inspiration than that. But actually to that line, I'm gonna say that I'm making this right next to God, actually, because this isn't a religious channel, but sometimes sometimes I talk about whatever pops into my mind. And so God had popped into my mind today. But what I say I'm making this next to God is because when I was a child, for some, like I'm by the state fair now, but I'm not calling it state fair God. I'm calling the parking lot of the little stash of motorcycles next to the state fair God. Because when I was a little boy, like I would certain things stick out to a child, like way, like children. So like you have something called your RAS, reticular activation system. I bumped into someone on a bus one time, and he mentioned that term RAS, and I knew exactly what he was talking about, and I further elaborated upon something that he was talking about, and he was taken aback that an actual everyday common shithead travailing the busways during working hours would be exactly familiar with something called RAS. But I actually discovered that in university, YouTube University, with a content creator called Real Social Dynamics, Tyler. He had some really great content back in the day, still yet, and he would talk about things like to really break you out of your shell, to really experience yourself as yourself with other people, and for other people to experience you like that, and you to experience other people like that. And but he has some really salient points in there, and one would be something like your RAS. So your RAS is like the things that your mind picks out of an environment based on your prior experience, or some things that your mind specifically picks out of your environment and presents to you. It may present to you or not, but your mind is aware of different things and filtering an environment. Actually, all the things that you're conscious of that you can perceive has already been filtered to make you conscious of it. But more than what you're conscious of has been filtered. But so what would stick out to a child in an environment is actually really significant, because their RAS would be way different than adults, because they simply haven't experienced life as we have, or they have experienced something of what this life is prior to and during conception, gestation, prior to, within, and just past conception and birthing, that would be different than an adult. And it's really profound. So sometimes some things will, like, well, I'm actually one of those things, like sometimes I'll go to places, like I'm at a state fair right now and I'm practicing my guitar publicly, because it's really good for like breaking out of your shell. And like I like the challenge of like playing in a public place. But then also I think that playing music is something worshipful. So when you're playing in front of other people, you're being worshipful towards other people, and you're blessing them in the best of ways, in the best of lights. And so I think that, like, the cooler thing, like a third rate or maybe a second rate musician, you walk past them with like having on a date, and you're a musician will clean up around your date and they'll impress your date. But a real worshiper will make the date more beautiful and will take nothing, because love takes nothing from us. If that's the thing about love. Like a lot of people, like they talk about like the realest things, they take nothing away from you. So you, like, some people, they would say like some things about like an experience of like romance or making love or something, as though you gave something away, you gave something up. But in the truest sense of love takes nothing. So I think it's the same thing with being an artist in the truest, because when you're an artist, it's actually a different stature. It's not a normal stature. It's not a normal statured person. Even some people walk by as civilians. Some of them, they may actually be a better musician than you are, but you're presenting yourself publicly as a musician. In that light, in that moment, you come across differently, and you have a different pull and dynamic as an artist, as a musician, bearing yourself in public with some of the graces, but also maybe some of the blunders that could come with that. So it's like a different stature as an artist. But in the strictest sense, if you're the true, so you may have more pull like that, you may be more influential like that, impressive like that. But if you're really true to if you're true to the art, there's something worshipful in it, in that you're blessing people and you're worshiping what is beautiful, what is love, which is also people on a date, families, whatnot, single people, whatnot. So in the truest sense, you're playing to them, but you're also playing for them in a worshipful sense. Because when you're, according, a lot of people don't know actually the object of worship. Like a lot of people would appreciate that worship is sublime and that it's valuable, but not the actual value, not understand consciously the value of worship. The value of worship is that you become that which you are worshiping. That's actually the fruition of worship, is that you become what you worship. So that might be something about what had been egregious about like different forms of worship in the past that have been called different things, is that you're you're worshiping something that is less than what you actually are, what you come from. So therefore it can be a little bit of a denigration towards yourself and what you come from, if you're worshiping less than the totality of beauty and excellence. But the actual worship is to become that which you're worshiping. And so in the strictest sense, if you're worshiping that which is beautiful, that which is love, you become love, but also love takes nothing. But so the RAS of like a child, like, so one thing that, so sometimes when I'm playing, I'll stick out to a young person, like a child, like I'll actually I'll garner the attention of people of all different walks of life, including children, in like a compelling way, like where they're interested in me, they're compelled towards me despite themselves. And that would be significant, like in terms of the RAS, like the way that a mind will filter an environment. But what I can remember of being young as a child, one thing that would stick out to me in an environment would be parked motorcycles. So like right here, you have some motorcycles that are just parked like that, just cool like that, cool daddy like that, cool daddies like that. Though that would speak to, like, when I was a child, there was something about the elegance of a motorcycle, the freedom of it, but also the kindness of it. Because a motorcycle, it's damn near cooler than anyone that's riding it, anyone that's walking past it, but it's also kind of graceful like that. So I would equate I would hear like when I was a child, what I couldn't recall of people talking about like things like something about motorcycles was otherworldly to me as a child. They would speak to me. A motorcycle would really speak to me as a child. I recently had experiences like over this summer on a motorcycle where I had certain graces and competence on a motorcycle past my actual experience on a motorcycle. Although you could say that a bicycle is still a bicycle that you ride as a child is still a lot of a motorcycle and is nearly about as dangerous as a motorcycle to some degree. It's interesting that we exactly encourage young people to ride a bicycle, part of actually getting a lot of the independence of a human being, but also your autonomy with your body, and then also your independence in that breaching past the circumference or the oversight of your guardians. It's a lot around bicycles as a child. So there's a big part of the development of a human being, at least in the last 20th century, that's exactly around bicycles. But it's interesting that when you start to ride a bicycle when you're a child, you get past a lot of fear. You grow a lot. There was a family friend that I had that taught me to ride a bike. He specifically was interested in me getting past training wheels. But then when I became older, I had experiences around him. We forged a friendship like when I was in middle school and then as an early adult, where a lot of something of the theme of that person in my life was getting me past comfort zones. So as a child, it was getting me onto bicycles and then past my parents' supervision. Then as an adult, it was getting me more comfortable socially. So that person was a lot of a ham and also a lot of an ass ham who once knocked a hat off of my head. So he was an ass ham hat. So this ass ham hat, a friend of mine, was and even the word friend is a little bit, I don't know if that's the right word. According to Nassim Nicholas Taleb, there's not a word for certain things. So there's actually not a word for this person in the theme in my life. But the theme was a lot about getting me past comfort zones, but also that person was like a lot of conflict. So I'm not trying to say I'm about that life by any means, but I'm familiar with confrontation and combat, because that person had a confrontational style of personality, and a lot of my family members have that confrontation. So when people are confrontational, it's more so, it feels like, I'm not going to say it feels like old hat. It feels like that time he knocked the hat off my head. So it's old hat. That's a saying that means like something that's commonplace. It's like old hat. So this conflict stuff had been old hat at different times because I had a person that was comfortable knocking hats off my head. But that is a lot about getting past comfort zones. But it's interesting that we get young people used to bicycles, but then at a certain point, like when people become adults, we re-inculcate fear in them. I think that somehow school puts fear in people, and then so a lot of times by the time people are young adults, you would be intimidated by a motorcycle as you were not intimidated by bicycles as a child, although bicycles can be very dangerous. And then also you're comfortable around cars, where cars may not present a imminent danger at all times as you can perceive, but cars are damn near as dangerous as anything else over time. Because if you think about how much you're in a car, they're very dangerous. And I somehow think that just the dynamics of a car being on four wheels, what that necessitates in terms of maintenance and livelihood that it would take to sustain a car, I think that four-wheel vehicles simply aren't viable, and they're not in anyone's best interest over time. And I think that two-wheel vehicles are. There's some form of dynamic, something changes about your lifestyle, your financial calculus, your configuration as you transfer on from four wheels onto two wheels, but then from two wheels onto 2 feet. So things get exactly better when you're on 2 feet. I think way better. You're a better person, you have better experiences, you're more dynamic on 2 feet than you are on two wheels, but you're better on two wheels than you are on four wheels, I think. But so that's a lot about like what I think about parked motorcycles. But what I was saying in this video, I had just a little bit of a thought about God and godliness today, and I don't mean that with any religious overtone, connotation, or dogma, or I don't mean that as part of a creed, but just sometimes I think that sometimes we do, sometimes things are like a lot of problems, they're like a double-edged problem and also a combination. So combinations are very awesome when they're working in your favor, but they're also very damning when they're working against you. But so are things that are double-edged and dynamic like that. So I think that sometimes we give what we call God too much credit and ourselves too little credit, and or we give ourselves too little credit and what we call God too much credit. An example of that is like a lot of times when you go places, right? So like say you just drive down the street, like I don't know what your experience is like as a young person, like maybe coming home from church. Sometimes you come from places, you drive in a car and you think, wow, this world is so sophisticated. It would have to take God to imagine that. So like all these streets that we see at night, and the lights that are lighting up the streets, and the cars that are driving up and down the road, and the wheels that are being used, and the different things that we come across, like this fire hydrant right here, and the way that it was designed. It's so awesome, man. Like things are so awesome, so sublime. It would have to take a God to do that. So we're impressed by things all the time as though we're impressed by like God the whole time, and we think down of ourselves. But sometimes we don't actually appreciate how stupid things are, or like how this where I'm sitting right now, it's concrete right now, but if you cease to maintain it, it's going to become overrun with weeds, and it's going to mean exactly jack shit very soon. And it actually does mean jack shit even as it's nice now, because it's a lot more trouble than it's worth. So like a lot of these neighborhoods these streets that we drive up and down that we're so impressed by, as though it would take some form of godliness or an engineer that had been blessed by God to come up with it. A lot of it, if you just appreciate that it's just simply the earth still, with a lot of stupid things that we overlaid on top of it, it's actually deeper like that. And you can have a deeper sense of reality, is that, yeah, this is just a simple earth. I'm just a simple person, and this is just a lot of stupid shit that's overlaid on top of it. And that's kind of a deep thought like that. It's deeper than being impressed by everything as though it had been God. But then on the flip side of that, sometimes what is great, what is profound, that gives us the ability to reason and experience life and come up with different stuff that would impress ourselves, is that sometimes what's profound is very simple, but better for being simple. So like an example of that is like, so most people would say that God is awesome, this experience is awesome, there's nothing needless or wasteless in what's this existence, that's why this existence is immortal. But yet we call things in this existence stupid sometimes. Like, so we call people stupid, but also we call things like flies stupid. So a fly would seem very stupid, but if you ever try to actually catch a fly, the fly is actually more present and somewhat more intelligent than you trying to catch it. So the fly is doing so what I'm saying is that sometimes we don't actually reason why something would happen. So I think that, so like a pet theory of mine, so I don't have pets, I have a guitar and I have pet theories. But so that's my family, me, my guitar, and my pet theories that are invisible, but I can enunciate them, and then maybe they take form when I enunciate them, but they're still better formless. So like a lot of times, so you like a lot of things are like, so you would see, like, say you see an environment, right? So these are just some trees and some grass. It's so beautiful during the daytime, it's so immaculate, like when the sun glistens on it, and you think, wow, like how did that happen? How did that get made? According to Eastern thought, create manifestation is comprised of at least and exactly three dimensions phenomena: creation, destruction, and maintenance. There's actually no beginning or ending to that, or ceasing to that. You can't say what had came first, the creation or the destruction or the maintenance. They're all exactly imminent and necessary in tandem at all points of existing. But so like there was a family friend. This family friend of mine is a person that took care of my father. He had been a lawyer in Africa. He was part of a struggle in Africa. The country he was from was what is it, just north of where I'm from. So I'm from Namibia. He was from I think Angola, and I sound like I'm making that up, but I think he's from Angola, French-speaking Angola. So he had this deadly beautiful accent that was a combination of Angolan, that his endemic indigenous language in Angola, mixed with the French influence, which he's also a fluent French speaker, and the French culture and overtone and mannerisms, and also English. So it was a deadly a deadly accent he had. And I one time described his accent to a trainer of mine, a female trainer, and she was damn near falling in love just with my description of his accent. A French Angola accent that's clever in English. Wow. But also he thought like that. He thought really, but he had been part of the struggle in Africa. He had his family was slain because of his participation in the struggle. He was also POW in torture. So he had actually experienced and survived torture, and he walked with a gait because of what he had experienced. But then he came to America and actually he forged a new family, and a woman was deeply in love with him here, a well-to-do woman, like a nurse, and he was blessed with another family with her and also her support. But he experienced more hardship here too, because like while he was serving my father here, his vehicle was victimized. I would see him places like I would be serving elderly people, and I would see him as I would be a PCA, and I would see him as like a caddy worker, like a case manager, helping people, because he was savvy in the area. So we'd bump into each other in life, like in my own household, serving my family, but also in life. But he had been actually survived torture, but he thought like a real philosopher. Like he would talk about like how stupid money is. He'd be like, okay, so I have this. He would actually give, because he was an actual lawyer in Africa, but his education, his credentials weren't recognized in America, so he had to re-educate himself. But he was staunch enough to re-educate himself with the purpose of going back there to continue his struggle. So while he was here, he would be at like the public colleges taking classes, and he'd be asking these questions that would stump the teachers. And so he would say like, so you got a $1 bill, right? You got a $1 bill, you got a $5 bill, and a $20 bill. It's actually the same worthless paper, all of it, but one says 1, one says 5, and one says 20. So why is one worth more or less? Just his reasoning right there exactly confounds our paper money fiat, and that is worthless and bogus. So I had just been saying that motorcycles can be like God. So those parked motorcycles are cooler than, or as cool as God. But then somebody driving by a motorcycle seeking attention with some whack ass music might be whacker than the devil. So a lot of things like they kind of overlap like that. But so he would confound teachers like that. Like, so you're saying this is a $20 bill, this is a $5 bill, and this is a $1 bill, but they're all printed on the same paper that's worth about the same jack shit, less than toilet paper in itself. So that shows you that money is more so what we actually give things value. The same could probably be said of beauty also. But then he would also I a little bit diverged why I referenced him. He would I diverged why I referenced him. So maybe I'll recall why I referenced him, but so like a lot of things are like a little bit like double-edged. So one thing he said is that, so they said that this creation came with the Big Bang, but if you think about it, a lot of like the cosmos, outer space, it makes no sound, and also the earth by and large, as it's existing and it's creating itself and being created and destroyed and maintained, it makes next to no noise. You could maybe say a storm makes noise, but by and large, life is exactly soundless. But what I meant to say is that life actually is maintained. You can see some of life being created and destroyed and maintained in the very insects that are around us. So these insects, they're busy and they're diligent and they're humble and they're stronger pound for pound than we are. They're more sublime. I think that as human beings, we have a need for etiquette and class and classiness. So the United States is interesting because the United States is almost like an experiment, a social experiment, in that we have transcended or dispensed with some of the limitations of class. So we're very open and amenable to class. But yet in that, there's also a dark side of that, in that we're a little bit xenophobic, in that we tend to break down cultures. Even some of the European cultures that have made America, they've got flack in America. So there's actually no real European culture that's all the way outright respected and stamped in America. Most European cultures have experienced flack and hatred and xenophobia in the United States, including British, including German, including Welsh, including anything. The only thing that's good to go in America is America, fuck yeah. But so actually no other culture, even the cultures that make up America, is good to go in America. So America has a little bit of an anti-culture, a little bit of like a negative zero culture, in that it breaks down culture. But in breaking down culture, that's the culture. But also the freedom within that is also the culture, and that can be redemption. But sometimes people they're confused around things like class and what's classiness and what's etiquette. So a lot of times, like nowadays, like people do anything goes, sky's the limit, go ham, go hog wild, this and that. It's all we take a lot of licenses in this culture. However, if you go to a lot of places, people will be on your ass if you say the right thing out of pocket, or if you listen to people talking about other people, they're actually critiquing other people very closely. So in a lot of ways, we're still almost more puritanical than we ever had been. If you just look at the censorship or the approbation and the critique of other people and their etiquette and their conduct, we're actually very close to like how we had always been in a puritanical sense. But also, we like that crazy shit. We like that rough shit. We like that raw shit. We like that vulgar shit also at the same time. But there's actually a need for class and etiquette and classiness. So you'll go to a lot of different places, and people will tend to deprecate themselves in a form of being like in a form of class. They're actually trying to create class by deprecating. So they'll be around each other, and then they'll like as a way of endearing each other, but also as a form of etiquette and class, not knowing where class actually stands, but attempting to make it stand. We'll try to be more classy by being more circumspect, more self-conscious, more self-aware, more self-deprecating, while making an ass out of ourselves that whole time, because we're not clear about where class is in the United States. I find that. But class is I think we have a human need for class and etiquette and discipline and economy. And you see that a lot like in insects. So they're actually class par excellence, economy par excellence. This is the drone bee that gets to do the fun stuff. This is the queen bee that's going to repopulate us. This is the worker bee, and they're happy like that. They're content like that. That's actually sublime. But these insects, they're managing things that whole time. But one thing is that they're so sometimes, like when a fly lands on you, right? Like say a fly. So, but what I want to say is that sometimes we pay homage to what we call God. God is beautiful. God is awesome. God is love. God has created all people in the greatest sense. God is all people. Yet that person is stupid. That thing is stupid. But that thing technically came from God. But also, a lot of people would call a fly stupid, even though it's part of this creation, and the creation wouldn't be viable without the fly. But what's stupid about the fly? It actually may be more so you that had been stupid than the fly, is what I reckon. Because I think that, so when a fly lands, so there's nothing needless or useless about this existence, not the least of which insects, which maintain this existence, including flies. But so a fly lands on you, and you can't actually appreciate what the hell the fly is doing. You can't see any rhyme or reason to the way that the fly is behaving. Same thing with a lot of insects, although their work is undeniable, indispensable, and we wouldn't be here without it, but also things wouldn't be as beautiful without it. So what is the fly doing as it's moving around randomly? Like say it lands on you and it's moving around randomly. I think that had you tried to strike the fly, you couldn't actually reach the fly. So the fly had been aware of itself and aware of you, such that the moment you try to touch it, it evades you because it's more aware than you on a certain sense. According to I emulate, not emulate, I admire and take a lot of inspiration from John Frusciante, the guitarist. I actually recently painted my fingernails. He said he used to dress in drag a little bit in LA, and he used to get cool glances and respect from some of the actual the badasses in LA of all walks of life. They appreciate, they got on with him being creative and pushing the envelope. Although he wasn't, I don't think John Frusciante was effeminate at any point. Like effeminate is like, I think that maybe like when you're awkward or not sincere, or you're not comfortable yet, or in really rocking with whatever you're what's feminine about you. So that would be more so effeminate. But he did dress in drag, and I think he embraced part of a bisexual lifestyle. He had referenced that in some of the older interviews. But that bisexuality, maybe a better word would be pansexual, as rock lifestyles go. That pansexuality, that pan style, stuff like that, it lends itself to a rock and roll lifestyle, but also guitar, because I play guitar, and for me playing guitar, I grow my nails out because the strings sound better. I play fingerstyle, that's like where you're not using a pick, and it sounds better with nails, but also but you're actually having nails like that. But I tend to paint them because I thought it'd be cool with the guitar. I do it more so to be magical than to be feminine in a sense, because I think the guitar is magical, but also carnival. So I'm at the state fair. Fairs are part of the human experience, a part of carnival. There's been different people that have talked about the sensation of what a carnival is. My dad put me on to some of the works that would talk about carnival. But carnival is very ancient. It's been with us for a long time. But so has also things that are magical. So in a carnival setting like a state fair, you would play with and entertain and appreciate things that are a little bit magical, like just fireworks at night, people dressing in different costumes, outfits, but then also like a musical instrument is very magical. But also the little touches you do, painting your nails, that can be magical too. So I embrace that, like in the vein of John Frusciante. But one thing that he talked about was that he thought that in another interview, he said he said that he thought that a fly would have to have a different sense of time, just because of how present they are, but also how quick they are. But I think that they may also have a different sense of life and death. And that I noticed that when I'm in a place and a fly lands on me, one is that I think that if an insect lands on you, I think it's benefiting you, because a lot of insects, they're kind of like a dad that can't help but fix things. They're natural fixers. So they're fixing the environment the whole time. They're fixing plants, they're fixing an environment. That's what insects would do. But also I think if they land on you, if they touch you, they're also fixing you, because they can't help but fix something that has a problem with it. But I think that when they're crawling on you, when they're engaging you, they're actually engaging your life force. They're engaging parts of you that you can't see. They're up to fixing parts of you that you can't see, but they're also going towards your weakness. So I've had different scrapes on myself from motorcycles, no less, this summer. Wounds that have healed, scars that have healed, bruises. And I noticed that a lot of times the flies, they'll land on that scar. They'll be interested in that scar. I think that sometimes when a fly is on you, when it's moving around on you, it's going toward, it's showing wherever a fly would go, there's something of a weak point there, of a death point there. That's what the fly is interested in. It's managing something of what has danger in it, or what is weak. It's going exactly to the weakness. So when it's crawling around you like that, I think it's finding your weak zone. Like a lot of your energy, your life force, it exists in like meridians, similar to like what ocean currents would look like, or what it would look like on a chart as they do like some of those sophisticated different forms of alternative medicine. I think that's what we really exist is. I can't enunciate it clearer than that, but I think we actually do have different ways of, we exist as energy. Shout out, thanks for the 5-finger, thanks for blessing the video, friend. So I actually had sprout. I'm so cool that I sprout fingers on my head, just temporary fingers like that. So now my video is way cooler because someone was showing me love. But I actually want to do another video about how profound our hands are. That's another title, but I'll leave that for another one. But that reminds me of a video that I gotta make, but or that I would like to make. But I think that we actually exist at we're energy in the first place, and according to Arthur Avalon, what you can see of a person, what actually would correspond to the, so when light hits me, right, whether the light from this camera, which is less of a true light, but like the light from the sky, right now there's a combination of light from the sky and light from the camera that make my appearance seem like this on the camera. It might be interesting, but it might also be like a little bit dull, because I think the light from the sun, from the atmosphere, from the sun illuminating the atmosphere, that's a truer, finer light. But the light from the camera, that might be a more superficial, trifling light. But what you can make out of me is actually what's impure of me, according to Arthur Avalon, in that the light is corresponding with or foreshadowing, contrasting with, it has meaning based on what's impure about me. But there are some things about me that may be so pure that you cannot perceive. That would be what you would call like my aura. The aura, it sounds profound, but it's not necessarily profound. It can be more profound than profound, but it can also be more mundane than mundane, which is why we don't appreciate it or recognize it. But the aura, that might be the broader range of you, the truer range, that actually doesn't conflict with, because I think the light, it contrasts with what it conflicts with, but it doesn't have a problem with the real you, but it has a problem with the problem, for lack of a better word, conflict, contrast, difference with what's impure about you. So the different food that you've eaten, you might eat the best of food, but it's not entirely pure. That would be like your physical form, what would correspond, what would be visible to light. But there's a broader, a subtler, greater, or maybe more mundane range of you that's broader than your physical form that you appear as, or that, because we're actually not limited by anything. We're not even limited by our physical being, but we correspond with our physical being. We're sympathetic. We're sympathetic, maybe empathetic with our physical form, and we're in the habit of being in proximity to our physical form in this life. I think the technical word for that is your there's a word for that, for your physical body, the vessel of it. It's called I picked that up by Todd Streak Bay. Dang, I can't reference it right now. There's a word for what your physical body is, and it's ephemeral, it's fleeting, it's passing, but it's still significant while we're in this life, because we have lessons that correspond and purposes that correspond with the actual constitution and function and eccentricities and tendencies of our physical body. Our physical body, it exactly corresponds to our unique lessons and purposes and destiny, for lack of a better word. I think the word destiny can be arbitrary, and it can be confounding and limiting. But we do have our tendencies, but also our choices. They redouble into our physical form, and play a role. But still, we're more than we appear as. But what we are, both what we appear as and what we are, it may be similar to like what you would see like in ocean currents and things like that. And so a fly, it may be able to perceive a different range of you, because all different beings, they have a different range of perception. It can, according to Arthur Avalon, it can be realer than real, or what we may call lesser than real, maybe more mellow. But different beings, they have a different sensory apparatus, and they can perceive a different range of this, what we call the word reality. May be very arbitrary and chauvinistic, because it makes it seem singular and settled for and decided for. But experience might be a better word. Experience is broader, subtler, but also more normal and mundane than we're familiar with, such that different beings can perceive a different range of it that corresponds with their unique lessons, but also purposes and contributions to this life, such that they may perceive things such as what we call temporal reality, like time, like a fly, but also life and death differently. So flies, they'll find like decaying and rotting food. That might be one degree of one range and mode of them actually perceiving the vitality of something different and engaging with it. But it's also similar like when they're crawling around us. So I think that when they're crawling around, nothing's needless, wasteless, or stupid in this existence, including flies, if you really do appreciate and honor what you're calling God. But, or what I think someone might call God, what I would call God. But so nothing's wasted, not even the movements of a fly. But I think that it corresponds with what might be of a lower life force, or like a something of a lower degree of our vitality. is exactly where the fly will be interested in and correspond with and fix. But also they can be a warning in that sense, so that if you go in an area and you see a lot of flies, there may be something death-like or low vitality that can lend itself towards decay, rot, death, disease. Also, I think when you're walking and a fly, something black like a fly, a gnat, something, it crosses your path, you may actually, because I think that these meridians of energy, they're not limited to our physical body itself, because there's no real seam between anything. There's like maybe gravity, correspondence, sympathetic correlation, but there's actually no true limit to anything. But there's just ranges to things in temporal circumstances. But so what we are is also connected to with whatever path we would be on, with whatever our intention. Your intentions cannot be isolated from wherever your feet are at any given time. Your feet exactly correspond with whatever your intentions are, and whatever they had been leading up to that point, and whatever is viable for you from any particular location at any point in time. Your feet correspond with your real purposes for being somewhere, and so, but also so do your intentions, your feet, and then also the vicinity that you would travail, they correspond. And I think that there's actually there's a necessity for our activities and our goings on as it affects